Good evening and welcome to the East Lyme Board of Finance regular meeting. Today is Wednesday, November 13th, 2024. The time is 5:33 and I'd like to call the meeting to order and begin with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd also like to welcome James, our East Lyme High School AV technician, who's going to be helping us with our meetings and running the equipment. So thank you for doing this. We appreciate it. Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the October 9th, 2024 regular meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Any corrections? No? All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any objections? And Richard Steele is joining us by Zoom, so I'm just trying to see if we can find out whether he was able to get in yet and vote. Okay, it looks like he's just joining now. Richard, we just went through the motion to approve the minutes of the October 9th. There's been no discussion, and we're voting, but you weren't on yet when we voted, so do you want to vote?
That's fine.
That's okay.
That's fine.
So, did you want to vote yes, or did you have any issues with the
No,
minutes?
I'm fine with the minutes.
Okay, so then, any abstentions? No, then the motion carries 6-0-0. Next on the agenda is delegations, where any member of the public can address us on any of the items that are on our agenda today. Is there anyone here that would like to address us on? No? Okay. Thank you. Next is reports. Our first selectman, Dan Cunningham, could not be here this evening. The town is being honored for our purchase of the Oswegatchie Hills parcel, showing the town's commitment to conservation and open space. So he's over at the Cape this evening accepting that award. So he did let me know that most of the things that he was going to cover have been included in the finance director's report. So with that, we'll move on to Mr. Gervais.
All right, so James, if you could put PIP on. And then PIP, and then click computer up top. Wireless presentation, I'm sorry. All righty. So, got a lot to talk about tonight. Like I said, I worked with Dan on his portion of the presentation and kind of blended it all together. So, update on all the projects we're working on in Town Hall, between the Finance Office and the First Selectman's Office, other departments. Last week we started the non-affiliated description of benefits discussions. So there's some members of the Board of Finance, a couple members of the Board of Selectmen, and then some non-affiliated representatives to go over the description of benefits, hopefully in time for our upcoming budget season. Tomorrow, I believe it's 5 o'clock or 3 o'clock. There's two meetings back to back. 3 o'clock's pension board, so it's 5 o'clock, is the Capital Improvement Program Committee. Our first inaugural meeting since I've been here, so we're really excited about that, get that off the ground, and look forward to having some productive conversations on our long-term capital projects lists. The town has hired, it was in the budget for a partial year IT engineer, focusing primarily on public safety. We hired one of the dispatchers, Jason Finnegan. Congratulations. And so he'll be moving over, I believe, next week or the week after from dispatch to IT. So we congratulate him on that. The reason I bring that up, the finance implications, we only budgeted for 8 months of him last year. So now this upcoming year we have to budget for the remaining 4 on top of the 8, right? Munis implementation, usually I had a whole slide about Munis implementation, but it's like so slow, it's slogging through honey. So we have implemented accounts payable, accounts receivable, general billing, everything except HR and payroll. We were supposed to implement payroll for January 1. We've had one meeting with our implementer. We haven't heard back since. They're trying to find some implementation specialists to work with us. So it's a really slow process. So with the next bullet point down there, we did a demonstration last week with ADP in order to streamline our HR and payroll functions. Some towns in the region have this hybrid Munis ADP combination. So I haven't presented this to Dan yet to talk about, but we're hopeful to put that in the budget for next year going forward, and kind of streamline some of our software in the software packages in the finance and HR offices. UPS union contract negotiations are starting soon. The contract is ending June 30, 2025 this year, so that's the only contract we are negotiating currently with the unions.
What group of
UPSU is
employees?
highway, water and
Highway,
sewer,
okay.
and admin.
Thank you.
The clerical. It's the largest. It's our largest union. One thing that just came across our plate when we were working with the pension board in discussions with our investment advisor, Fiducian. So they oversee the investments for our defined benefit program, our pension, but no one has any, I don't want to say jurisdiction, but it's really a gray area of who is picking the funds available for our employees in their 457 and 401A plans. We just converted our retirement, our 401A and our 457 to more streamlined packages, so to speak. And in doing that, we reached out to our investment advisor, and as kind of a courtesy, because he's doing our pension, he did the initial review of the funds to offer our employees. But if we want to hire him and his firm on a annual recurring basis to review this and make sure we have the best-in-class funds available, it'd be about $12,000. So right now I've been here two years plus, and we never looked at that. We haven't looked at that. So this is something I think we'll put in the budget for next year. That way, there's professional advisors reviewing our investments that the employees can put their 401A and 457 in. Just this week, we started discussions on town-wide radios. So obviously, a lot of our departments, police, fire, public works, the Board of Ed, water and sewer, park and rec, all use some sort of radio system. And everyone kind of has their piece to it, but really, with Dan Cunningham and Dan Clear, IT director, we got all the stakeholders in one room and said, okay guys, should we maintain the current system we have, or should we be looking to adopt the state plan, the state radio system? Right? We have a lot of infrastructure in the town, the prison, the National Guard bases, so that's ongoing. We just had our meeting earlier this week to try to get everyone on the same page and figure a headway. If last year in the budget, we budgeted $500,000 for a radio tower at the public safety building. There's preliminary talks, but we might need another $500,000 to update the old radio towers that we have across town. The systems that we currently have are from 2008. So when we reached out to the state of Connecticut to say, okay, how could we kind of blend our two systems together and merge with yours, they said, your stuff's so old, the generation after that we're not connecting to. So that'll probably be in the CIP in one form or another, or at least a good discussion on what we should do there.
Generally, what are they used for, the radios? What's their function?
The police respond, back to dispatch. Same with fire. The one kind of big piece of this that I'm not really explaining well is if you're on a state system, you can talk to a lot of these other towns around us. When we have our own system, if we travel, like when we went up to Berlin, right, we're not talking to anybody. Like once we leave our little jurisdiction, that's it. They're calling people. And there's kind of a workaround. I was talking to the IT director this afternoon. There's a workaround where we can kind of put...
Just for everyone's,
Yep.
when we went up to Berlin, it was because our
The fire.
fire marshal and deputy
Correct, yeah.
were up there organizing.
Correct. I should have put more context around
Yeah.
that. They were kind of like they were a part of the command. So they went up there and they were, boots on the ground helping to direct resources. That was both Eric Quinn and Bill Bundy. So the little workaround to getting on the state system is you take our system, put it through almost like a repeater kind of thing, and then it could talk back to the state radio system. That works in our town if it can connect to our radio. Once you take that and you leave and it can no longer connect to ours, you're not talking to anybody. So this is way over my head. I know how to walkie-talkie. That's about it. But besides that, I have radios are outside my capacity. So, but just be advised, town's looking at that, and there's some large dollar amounts there when you talk about dark fiber and different things we could be doing. A couple other things to touch upon. East Lyme Fire Service, brush fires and OT, oh my. As everyone knows, these fires are, we've had probably close to 10 or a dozen at this point across town. And some of these firemen are working, 90 hours of overtime in a week. So we're monitoring that, but there's not much you can do when there's 50 acres in Rocky Neck on fire. So I skipped over one, but I'll get back to that. The Dominion building, Dan is meeting with the reps from the Dominion building in the next couple weeks to discuss next action items with that, as far as whether it's brownfield grants or exactly what's going on there. But he wanted me to tell you he's working on that. And then the last one is the police payroll issue. There's two issues regarding this. It came up at the Board of Selectmen meeting last week, so I figured I'd let you guys know as well. It's been an ongoing issue in the pension board. We've been discussing it. So there's two issues. Really, the first one is for an indeterminate period of time, some police officers were being charged. They're getting their health insurance premiums deducted post-tax, not pre-tax, right? So they're paying taxes on the health insurance premiums. So we've resolved that in this current year, so they're fine for this year, but it's going backwards. What do you do in 2023, 2022, and 2021 as far as restating, W-2s or 1099s? So we've consulted a tax attorney. We're working with him. We worked last week with him. We are meeting tomorrow with him to resolve that and get that pushed through. The other part of it is the police pension contributions from the employee. So the police and one fireman contribute 6%, roughly, it's either 6 or 8% to the pension in order to get their 2% pension instead of 1% like everybody else. My phone, right? Lost my train of thought here. Hold on. Pension. Okay, so what's happening is, really, they should be their pension when they retire. A portion should be pensionable, and a portion should be taxable, non-taxable. I meant to say. But right now, it's all taxable. So they're being taxed on the front end, taxed on the back end. We're working with our pension attorneys and our tax attorneys on that issue as well. And there's a lot less individuals that impacts. It's really retirees that impacts. But we're working through both those issues. Anyone have any questions on the slide Dan and I put together kind of for the first Selectmen's report? Okay. All right, getting into the budget. We've met with every department except for HR and registrars, which we're meeting with next week. I invited Denise Hall and Dan Cunningham. Dan, I invited all the meetings. Denise, I saved you the headache and invited you to the departments over $1 million. And we had some good discussions. The theme across all departments is budget constraints, right? That's always the theme. It's just a matter of managing their budgets and getting creative. So in Public Works, they're running under budget because they have some staffing issues. It's been tough for them to keep employees. While that's bad, that might be a detriment to the department. The finance bean counter side of things, we're under there. The fire department, as previously mentioned, we're burning up some overtime. No pun intended. Thought about that one for a while, and they're depleting a lot of materials. Right, our equipment's getting used a lot more. It's sitting on the side of these brush fires for hours on end. So we're monitoring that. Hopefully, a couple more rainstorms and we'll be through that. Park and Rec. Every year they've got more and more properties. It seems like to maintain. Last year they were talking about adding a whole park at Darrow's Ridge, and I'm going, how are we going to manage that park? But anyway, so seasonal help continues to be an issue there. On top of having a staff of 4 full-timers, they hire 3 or 4 part-timers during the summertime to help mow the grass and maintain these properties. We're thinking outside the box on some of these issues. So we know there's upcoming retirements in some of these departments. So we're having discussions now to say, okay, well, can we shift maybe one of those positions from an office staff to a field staff kind of situation? So we're working through that on some of these issues to hopefully alleviate some constraints on our budget. And then last one, the library. We met with the library last week to go over next year's budget because they were a little concerned with a rather large increase. It's about 11%. And so we're just looking for ways to create efficiencies and synergies between the two organizations because technically they are a 501c3. They just so happen to be, funded by us about 90%. So we reached out to KERMA. We're working with our insurance agency because we have like a quasi-governmental insurance company that a lot of places don't have access to. So I wanted to see if we could bring in the library, since we have such a close relationship with them, into this situation. So that's still ongoing. We haven't had a decision yet on that. And another issue that came up in discussions with Lisa Timothy, the director. So our pension, the Board of Ed makes a contribution, the employer contribution to the pension that the actuary determines. So the Board of Ed does, the town does, the library does, water and sewer does. So essentially what we're doing is the town budgets the library for an operating budget. We send them the money. 3 months later, I ask for some of that money back. So in an effort to say, okay, well, maybe we can help smooth out your increase and your peaks and valleys in your budget, maybe we move over that $20,000 pension contribution to the town. So we're going through a lot of these issues right now to try to see if we can create, like I said, some efficiencies and just smooth things out to make it easier. They have to cut a check. They send the check to us. We deposit the check. Did we lose the check? It's money from us to you, back to us. So we're trying to create efficiencies there. Does that make sense?
And so technically speaking,
Yep.
the employees of the library are not employees of the town.
Correct. But they're in their pension plan. All right, we'll move along. Yep.
Could I just ask you to clarify, Kevin, what you said about the Parks and Rec? So I think you explained that we don't have enough staff, especially during busy seasons, to staff all the new parks, and you also mentioned the one up in Darrow's Ridge. Is there an option to use volunteers?
Oh my gosh, you pulled that out of my brain. On my my other notebook I have over there, the York, the Department of Corrections just started. I guess before COVID, there was a program they had with the Department of Corrections to do a lot of maintenance on the boardwalk and things like that. I believe it just started back up a couple months ago.
So it's for prisoners who are going to be released in the pretty immediate future. So they're vested interest in it.
Yep, they're not running away.
Yeah.
They can see the time horizon there. So there are, so to answer your question, Jerry Locken, the Park and Rec director, I'm sure he's, pulling every resource he can. I know he does work, and when they do like gardens, there are some volunteer organizations. I believe he works pretty closely with Pollinator Pathway. That sounds about right. Marjorie Meekoff, Pathway Pollinators. I'm sorry if I butchered that. I know those two words, but they're big into natural plants. You're not planting invasives, right? Plant things that are from this area. So they have some volunteer aspects to that, but really they have an individual that's looking to retire in the near future in your office, and a conversation I've had with the director was, okay, well, can you switch one of those seasonal workers to the office, right? Because really they're heavy during beach season. All the hundreds of people are coming looking for beach passes, but right now in the wintertime, I don't know what goes on over there. I'm just saying I see them peak in the summer, and it gets kind of quiet in the winter. So I think a shuffling of that, because we don't want to add the big thing. I always look for benefits. We don't want to add another benefited position. So if you want a full-time position over here, where are we pulling that from somewhere? I'm trying to minimize how many benefits and health insurance packages we have to give people. So that's kind of the give and take we do there. Good. All right. So financial statement updates. We're still on 2023. We're working through that. We have a timeline on the next slide here on how we are going to get through 2023, get through 2024, and then be on time for fiscal year 2025. And that would be the first time in over, I think, 13 years we filed a financial statement on time. So we've got our work cut out for us, but here's our timeline. This gives us a month and a half of flexibility to still meet that goal of getting the 2024 audit out. So we are on time, starting our 2025 audit, right? So working towards getting that done, getting us on track, and then never looking for another extension again. As
Have
part
you
of
have any issues with our accounting firm as for they gotta have the right enough staffing, or I don't know if they've changed partners. I know there's a lot of movement going along.
So since I've been here, we are on our third partner.
Mm-hmm.
Originally I started with Ron Nossick for a couple weeks. Then I went to Nicoletta. Nicoletta just left and actually went to the town I live in, but on the finance side of things. But now we have our third, our partner. She's assured me, I sent this to her to review to make sure she's good with this timeline, because we report to the state of Connecticut as well this timeline.
Right.
Really I think a lot of it is on us to give them all the information we can and have them filter through it and then see where the rest of the requests lie. So right now, just this past weekend, I was working with our external accountant to clean up and finalize a lot of our 23 numbers. So we're actually putting together a set of financial statements. A lot of municipalities rely on the auditors to put them together, but we're putting them together in-house, then we hand them over. So we'll see how that all goes.
Thank you.
Capital Improvement Program Committee, first meeting tomorrow, if any of you would like to be in attendance and just watch this all happen. But it's a collaboration between multiple boards. We got the Board of Ed, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, different various department heads in attendance, and just some history. We had a finance intern a couple months ago put together really the plan for this. And if anyone, where do we get our resources? A lot of it was from the GFOA best practices for capital improvements, but also we really leaned heavily on Madison, the town of Madison. They do a nice job with their capital improvement program committee down there. So there's that. So it's really two-pronged, this committee. We really need a current year capital projects list, but really we need a 5 to 10 year capital projects plan, right? So it's two-pronged. The initial phase would be this current year, rate all the projects, let's put them together, see what we can afford, and then it's looking at this 5 to 10 year horizon, and possibly even longer, right? Maybe just map out every asset we have in town and put an expected life date on it. and see those frightening numbers.
Kevin, will information on the work of the capital committee and the plan be on our website for, and if so, would it be under,
So that came up earlier today when I was talking with our town clerk, Karen Galbo. We were talking about like the agenda. It's not enough.
it's an ad hoc committee, it's not
Yeah,
a,
so maybe we would put a tab on the website, kind of keep people apprised of what's happening. I still plan on having an agenda for tomorrow, just to kind of keep us on track. So maybe we would post things on the website, just so in a effort to be transparent, keep everyone on the same page, and I'll apprise the boards every meeting of what's happening there. But yeah, I definitely think we should upload all those documents on the
maybe
website.
just like a subheading under the budget information.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Kev, I'm assuming there's a charter written for the capital committee?
No.
Okay. And is it intended to be strategic, or is their decisions binding in any way?
Not binding, it's really a recommendation package to the
Advisory.
board. Similar to the, last year, the Board of Selectmen put together a little committee for non-affiliated salary discussions. And they recommended a package to the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance. I kind of see it like that. Any questions? Okay. I think I skipped one. Okay, and since we're talking about that, I always kind of like to, benchmark us against what I consider our peers, right? A lot of these towns on this list are members of our DIRG, our District Reference Group, that the State Department of Education puts together. It lists municipalities A through maybe I. We are D. So Old Saybrook, Ledyard, Stonington, Waterford, Branford, and Clinton are in our DIRG. I don't believe Colchester and Salem are. Madison is a DIRG B. Okay, so middle of the page there's Madison. That's kind of like the benchmark, right? And now the reason I say benchmark, I broke the budget down into 4 categories that most municipalities do: the Board of Ed, town operations, debt service, and then cash capital. How much cash are you putting aside, right? If you look here, Madison, my poster child, they put $5.5 million away per year in cash, right, to offset capital projects in the future. We have 10% of that, right? So if you slide over and look at percentages, right, Madison pays less than 2% to debt service payments because they don't have debt, right? They're paying with most of their projects in cash. We are paying the majority of everything with debt, right? And that was fine when we were in a low interest rate environment. But as this interest rate is creeping up on us, right, we just took out a bond anticipation note 4 months ago for $19 million, right? So those are the 2 things I really like to see kind of slowly change in the other direction. I'd like to see the debt kind of come down a little bit and that cash capital line increase, right? Right now, kind of one of the philosophies I use internally is if the project's about 100,000, we're bonding it, right? We only had, this was last year's budget. I put this together for last year. I'm just bringing it up so everyone knows about it. Last year, we had about 499, 552 in cash capital. We increased that, I believe, to either 750 or I think $902,750. I remember now. So we more than doubled it. We're almost at $1 million. If we can get that to $1.5 million, then the following year $2 million, that would really help out our debt, right? It may come at a kind of a crunch in the budget for a couple of years, right? Because we're still paying that debt down while increasing cash capital. But over the long term, that debt service would come down, cash capital would increase, and we wouldn't have all this interest, right? Our budget has almost $3 million of interest that we're paying to our bondholders. So I just wanted to show this to say where we are, where we currently stand, is kind of like a benchmark against our peers. Now, that's not to say this is all doom and gloom, right? If you look at this, we spend about 8% more than the kind of our competitors and our neighbors average on education, right? I just saw a report last week that East Lyme, I think, had the 20th best high school in the state of Connecticut, right? So when you look here, take these names and Google their school and see where they rank there. So, so just something I looked at. Anyone have any questions? Okay. And some things we still have to complete on the horizon. We have not yet touched the Coastal Resiliency Fund. I know we budgeted $10,000 in last year. We just have not really got around to it. A lot of things have come up, as everyone knows. And then the other thing we need to touch upon at some point is an OPEB trust. Right, so the town has this lingering liability out here that we're not funding. We just kind of pay as you go, but really, it's a multi-million-dollar liability. It's been dropping the last couple of years, but it's still over $3 million, and we don't fund it. We're paying as we go. So,
And OPEB stands for other post-employment benefits, so mainly health care for the retirees.
yeah. All right. Next steps: close out the audit, turn around 24 audit before 25's audit is due, and then RFP of the auditors for 2025. The fiscal 24 is the final year of the contract. And then, as previously mentioned, explore other time and attendance softwares than NovaTime, which we currently use. The system we bought back in 2018 is now sunsetting. So this is why it was really a perfect time. ADP gave me a call out of the blue, and this is the perfect time. With this system sunsetting, ADP gave me $80,000 off on a deal, so I'm really pushing for this. So just so everyone knows. I think that's it. Sorry, Chris.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Kevin? That's very comprehensive. Appreciate it.
I do have, I thought I printed it out, but it's right there. Just so everyone knows, I was, so I had two more things tonight to present. The printer was not liking me and did not print it for you guys. But ARPA, I just want to give you an update of where we stood for ARPA. I believe it might be on the website by now because I believe I sent it to Mike Mines. So if you don't have a copy right now, we lost everybody and everything. There we go. We're back. Okay. All right. So ARPA, the town had $5,463,000 allocated to it by the federal government. To date, we've spent $4,997,892. We have $238,000 in encumbrances. We still have left to spend on open projects, $426,000. That 426 is kind of what keeps me up a little bit. That money's got to be fully encumbered by this December 31st. If it's not encumbered, I'm going to pull it down and we're going to use it to offset revenues. So we're going to have not some happy department heads, but that's what we have to do. Currently, we have $4,004 of unbudgeted ARPA funds.
So would the system for the radios be something that we could use ARPA funds for?
Funny you say that. ARPA was used for the initial radio system to get us on the state. So a couple years ago, the town, as part of the ARPA project, we set aside $466,000 to buy radios. So we have, gonna open a can of worms, but so we bought Harris these radios that are the state system called their Harris. It's not Motorola, it's Harris. And something happened with the firmware on them, and that wasn't compatible with the state system. So we spent a couple $100,000 on these radios, and they're sitting in a box because we can't use them. So that's why we had this big conversation, this big meeting to say, okay, what are we doing with these radios? How can we? Apparently, if you install the older firmware, they work. So they're working through that now. Again, that's out of my finance side of things. We already spent the money, so I'm out of that one. But yeah, the town we set, and as part of that radio system as well, we had $132,000 set aside for microwave dishes. Not you're not putting popcorn in it. It's going from Flanders and sending a signal to the other stations and other points of our network, so to speak. That project's ongoing. We spent $64,000 of that so far. So we're working on upgrading the radio system, but I think it's kind of piecemealed at the moment. So the two Dans want to bring everyone together, make sure everyone's on the same same talking length, same bandwidth. And you like that? That was a good one. And make sure we're all talking the same lingo. So
Okay, how many items are encumbered altogether?
1, 2. How many? Like, what do you mean? How many items?
Line item.
238,000, but it's 8 projects are still ongoing.
So
it looks like.
Okay.
A couple of them are the big ones. As part of the ARPA put quite a few dollars away for water and sewer. So water and sewer, the Nyack pump station right by Dad's over here, that got a $775,000 upgrade. That's a really cool building, by the way. It's like really deep. It goes like 3 stories down. Separate can of worms. And then the water tank on Boston Post Road, you may have remembered, it got painted.
Yeah.
That was a $600,000 project. And then there was another project, Well 5, had upgrades to it that were nearly $1 million. So quite a few, $2 million of our $5.4 million was used for water and sewer projects. That answer your question?
Yes, nice.
And then I did have, the only other thing, I don't have a copy here. I was going to give you guys a copy of the grant fund. We currently have 6 grants in it. Nothing too exciting. There's a neglected cemetery grant for $5,000 fully expended. We have 2 early voting grants, one for $10,000, one for $5,000, both fully expended. We have 2 grants from the TVCCA for the Commission on Aging and kind of like the social services. If someone needs assistance, they can kind of help out there. And we have a separate ARPA grant that the Commission on Aging got for $53,000 roughly, and that's paying for some of the social worker there as well. So, yeah, a lot going on. Anyone have any questions? Okay, make sure you go back to the
Thank you. So next on the agenda is new business discussion and possible action. We have our tax collector here, Christine Dixon.
How are you tonight?
How are you? Welcome.
Thank you. Pretty simple tonight. My annual suspense list tonight for this year. Nice and low, so that's good. I have a total suspense that I'm requesting is $37,955.53. That includes your out of businesses that have closed up and left, deceased. We have bankruptcies that we put on this list. We put mail returns, so those are bills that we have sent out. The mail comes back to us undeliverable. We can't find them. We end up sending them to our collection agency. So we do get some of that. These are still, we can still collect on this list, but it would just go on the suspense list. So it's short and sweet compared to past years where I've been trying to clean up the list and make it a little more manageable. And I think we've hit it now. So it'll be pretty consistent, I think, from here on in. And it spans the years from grand list years 2020 through 2022. So that's my request. And does everyone have the lists in the paperwork and the letter? So you can
Yes.
take a look at each. Yeah, okay.
Okay, we can accept the,
So our, Kevin, generally from the accounting perspective, our motion here is to accept these items into the suspense.
okay, I'll make a motion to accept the tax collector's suspense list in the amount of $37,955.53.
Second,
Any further discussion or questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Of this $37,000, can you estimate how much you may get back from that?
That's a tough one.
I know it's probably impossible, but you
Yeah,
haven't-
that's a tough one. The nice part about having our collection agency is they can find a lot of these people on my mail return list.
Yeah,
And that's been really helpful. We've, Tax Serve has done a phenomenal job. We get, money in every week from Tax Serve. So I can't estimate though. Sorry about that.
I
You
thought,
know,
yeah,
I don't have anything
Okay.
like that. Sorry.
thanks.
Sorry, does it matter that you said 955 and the number is 995?
I'm sorry, did I read it wrong? Yep, sorry, I must have read it wrong. $37,995.53.
55.
No, actually, the schedule has 955, the letter has 995, so which one is,
Oh, it was the letter.
I'm reading off.
Oh, you're right. It's
I'm reading
it's-
off the schedule.
Yes, that's a typo. It should be 37,955.53.
Okay, that's, yeah, okay.
So I can correct that letter.
I withdraw my question.
Yeah, there you go.
Good catch.
Thank
though.
you.
That's right, so I was reading
I
off
must
the
not have my
wrong-
glasses on.
Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded and clarified, the discrepancy between letter and total. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And I think I heard Rich chime in there. Thank you. The motion carries 600.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next on the agenda is old business, discussion and possible action, the Capital Improvement Committee public representation. So at our last meeting, we identified the members of the Board of Finance that were going to be appointed to this capital committee, but at that point, we had not identified a public representative who was willing to delve into our capital improvement committee. We do have a recommendation. Rich, did you want to chime in here?
Sure. I would like to nominate Barry Sheckley to be our public representative to the Capital Improvement Program subcommittee. Barry had served on the Charter Revision Committee and was a previous member of the school board. He is very well served within the East Lyme community and is very willing to contribute more service. So again, I'd like to nominate Barry Sheckley to the subcommittee for capital improvement.
Can I second that, please?
Certainly. So, that motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Sounds good to me.
Yep, sounds, certainly, that sounds like Barry will have a lot of very pertinent experience, and we welcome him to our first committee tomorrow,
5 p.m.
5 p.m.
Just have to vote.
Yes, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? No, motion carries 600.
Well, it was easy. I came here, I had a 2-minute speech here.
Oh.
You can still give it if you want.
I think it's going to be a great opportunity.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. I didn't realize that's who you were back there. Otherwise, I would have invited you up.
Maybe I should have just said,
So next on the agenda is public discussion where anyone in the public could address us on anything that comes under the purview of the Board of Finance. I don't know, Barry, if you have anything else now, seeing that you're the only one of the public here. If not,
I'll
then.
spare you my 52 pages.
Okay, thanks. Board comments? Anyone have anything that they want to share?
I just want to mention, I mean, we brought up that on the ARPA funds on those radios. I know Rich and I were on the ARPA committee, and we went over that. It would have been nice to know that that didn't work out. So, if that could have been brought up to somebody at some time, that would have been nice information for us. So, just for future reference down the road.
Does the ARPA committee have any follow-up meetings?
No,
just us, but maybe the
not
board
that
of-
I know of.
Or maybe the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance should know when we just spent a lot of money for something that's not working. It would have been nice to know.
Yeah. And then additionally, Denise, as Kevin had listed the town projects that were ARPA funded and their status. I've asked before and got some partial data, but for the nonprofits and businesses that we funded, it would be nice to be assured that they actually used the funds, or we could retrieve those grants to help meet some of these expenses that are upcoming.
Good point, Rich. We'll see what we can do about that.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's anything else?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned.